Welcome back, my friends. Welcome to those of you who are brand new. Today, we're back with John Dargy, the expert when it comes to building out your home studio. Whether you're a content creator, whether you're a sales professional, whether you use your computer and your web meetings to connect with your audience, which is something we love to do here in the visibility hacking world. So today, yesterday, if you checked out the beginning of this series, we talked about cameras. Today, we're talking about microphones. I love it. I love it, John. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Molly. Thank you so much for having me back. I am super excited about this one. I can't wait. I'm doing
And
great.
you sound so good. I love talking about microphones with people who know microphones because dang, your voice just sounds like caramel. It's amazing.
Thank you so much.
So you released this video recently that has blown my mind, showing how paying attention to your microphone totally changes the game. And so
Mhm.
we're going to dive into that today. So tell me first your story of when you realized that microphones are so important.
So microphones are like I call them like it's like the blessing and the curse, right? Audio is the blessing. Like if you're gonna have a problem on a live meeting, it's gonna be audio.
Yeah.
But if you get it
And we're
right,
not talking about people on mute who forget
oh
that they're
no,
on
no, no,
mute.
no, no, no. It could be there is so much. So let's take it back, right? You go again, we'll go to Hollywood. They spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on sound design, on the experience because they want that perfect sound to accentuate what they're seeing on the screen. It completes the experience, but you don't know it.
Yep. Yeah.
It's the silent. And that's why I call audio the great equalizer. You're
Yeah.
having an experience, and the better that experience sounds, whether you realize it or not, is creating a connection with your audience. Or, as the video will show you, not, which is exactly
Yep.
what you don't want to do.
Yep.
So, what for
And
me, it was just making sure I understand that. Like that's when I realized that I was like, this is number one. This
yep.
is where you start. You start here all the time because it buys you leniency everywhere else you upgrade. If you get a great audio, your camera doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, and the video will show you why.
Oh, I love it. The video is linked down below. Make sure you guys check it out. When I was in grad school, I used to put people into functional MRI scanners and see what was happening in their brains while we had them watch a video versus watch a video and hear the story with audio versus just audio alone. And it was incredible. I thought you'd get the most firing up in our brain, the most activity when you're watching a video. I'm thinking because your eyes have to move around, your brain has to comprehend what you're seeing, but I was completely wrong.
Mhm.
When you like, first off, the amount of firing up in your brain when you're listening to something is way more than what happens when we're just watching something. Just comparing those two. But when you combine them together, it's a completely different experience in your brain. So
Mhm.
if we know that the multi-billion, maybe even trillion-dollar movie industry is paying so much attention to the quality of audio, the types of audio they're putting in, well, clearly it's important. So why are we, as content creators and online professionals, why are we not paying as much attention to it as we should? Well, today we are going to show you what to pay attention to. In today's video with our favorite home studio expert, we are going to talk about use cases with microphones because every kind of content you're creating is going to be a little bit different. And we're not here in this series to give you blanket statements. We recognize that everyone's content, everyone's moments of connection are going to be a bit different. So we are going to dive quite deeply into what we call use cases. We're also going to talk about what John already mentioned as the great equalizer, which I cannot wait to talk about. And then we're going to dive into kind of like microphones 101. We're going to talk about the different types of microphones and maybe give you an idea of where you should be with your microphones. What type of microphone should you be investing in based on where you are right now in your business and your content creation, and taking into account your use case, the type of content you want to be creating. So if that sounds interesting to you guys, if that sounds interesting, total pun intended, then definitely stay tuned. Let's roll that intro, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back, my friends. We're going to talk about use cases and why you need to pay attention to the kinds of content you plan on creating, the kinds of content you already create. You need to pay attention to that when you're picking the right microphones. So before we give you a list of the different types of microphones, stay tuned for that one. John, let's talk about use cases. Why do they matter?
Yeah, so when you're talking about creating content and everything we've talked about so far, the microphone you pick, there are right answers and then there are not so right answers, right? There isn't a one size fit all for everything all the time. And we can actually demonstrate this right here, right? So if your content is like where I'm sitting at a desk all day and I'm talking on Zoom, having a mic on a boom arm, the best mic I can find, works perfectly for me, right? Yeah, exactly. It's there. You don't move around that much. But let's say, I'm doing pain management or teaching classes and the camera's away from me. I'm moving around, or I like to walk and move with my hands. If I start talking like this and I start moving away, things start changing pretty fast, right? Like I don't actually maintain the experience. So maybe for someone like that, Molle, who has that wireless mic with it, doesn't matter where she moves, doesn't matter what she's doing. She's doing push-ups. She's not doing push-ups, but if she's doing these things, the mic stays right there. Yeah. Again, keeping the audience's attention on her. Keeping the audience engaged with her voice, being able to do her storytelling, and there's no interruption. There's no sort of weird psychosomatic back channel like, oh, can't hear her now. Let me go see what's over here on YouTube. Like, stay connected, and it just works better for those types of use cases.
Makes total sense. And we have a wonderful friend and colleague who does pain management. So she does more Tai Chi and movement. So her content, parts of her content, she's up close to the camera, she's having a conversation. Then in the same piece of content, without cutting or editing, because she loves the live stream shows, she'll take a bunch of steps back. She'll be full frame in her camera, and she'll still be able to provide her sound quality at the same level because we understood what her use case was. We understood how she was utilizing her sound in her videos. But as you say, if you're just sitting at your desk or you're podcasting or you're doing something more stationary, well, we got other options that work 100%. Fantastically for that as well. If you're taking your studio on the road, there's options for that as well. And I know this sounds really overwhelming to a lot of people right now. Like, we're talking about billions of dollars in the film industry, and we're talking about people there's entire teams on movie sets who are just devoted to sound. And like, okay, maybe we don't have a giant team behind us creating our content. Don't worry, my friends. This is why I brought John over for this series, because I want you first to feel empowered by knowing the differences, knowing what's important, and knowing that all of this can fit uniquely into your world, your content, your studio. So stay with us. But first, question of the day. I'm curious to know, what is your use case? What do you use your microphones for? What kind of content are you creating? If you need some prompts for this, think about it this way. Do you sit in a chair at your desk for your content, or do you move around? Is your content created in your studio, or do you go outside? Do you move around? Is your studio a little bit mobile? Tell us a bit more about the content you're creating, and bonus points, you can even put some links down below. We'd love to check out the content you guys are putting out into the world. And maybe we'll be able to give you some tips on how you can elevate your sound quality as well. So post your questions, or post your answers, I should say, down in the comments below. Now let's get into our second topic today, which I'm very excited to talk about, which is, you call it, the audio is the great equalizer. And I know a lot of people who spend a ton of money when they're trying to set up their studio, and they think, man, if I have the most expensive camera, everything's going to be okay.
Right.
That's going to separate me from everyone else. But you say that's completely wrong. So
Don't go there.
tell me
Don't
why.
do that first. Don't do that first. Don't do that first. Cameras are important. They're a big piece of the pie. But if you have a great looking camera and you sound like garbage, it's not going to make a difference. In fact, it actually probably can work against you. And so if you are actually looking at sort of a progression, like, where do I invest first? What can I do? You can buy miles of forgiveness with an incredible microphone. As the video that I showed you guys earlier, the demo showed you, you can say, like, if you sound good, your camera is important, but it's definitely less so, because everything related to storytelling, dialogue, is in the auditory experience. So if you want to get the most out of your content, your interactions, go to audio first. Make sure you got it, because that's where you're going to be able to just start taking ground. And people will, I've been in so many meetings like, man, you sound great. It's so buttery smooth. Are you a podcaster? And all these things. They notice, whether they say it or not, they notice. And so this is where you want to start. In the hierarchy of, in the Maslow's hierarchy of studio needs, you start with audio, because it just makes sense. It just creates so much more runway for you to kind of work on other things as you're going along.
Absolutely. And in the visibility hacking world, we're always talking about what we call IPEC goals. There's other videos you guys can check out. I'll dive into those a little bit deeper. But the P in IPEC stands for perception. And we need to be focused. If we want to care about the C, which is conversions, when people actually buy our products and our services, we have to first think way earlier in the process, and we have to think about perception. So if we have poor audio quality, well, how does that play into the perception of our brand? Is our brand high end? Are we trying to sell to high ticket clients? Well, if we have poor audio quality, those clients are not going to be watching your content. Those people are not going to be wanting to pay attention to the message that you have to say, no matter how brilliant you are or fantastic your solution is. So think about your brand perception when it comes to your audio. And of course, we can always talk about video again. Check out the video we did previously in the series, where we talk more about getting started with the right camera stuff. But audio is so key to that perception. I love it. I love it. My friends, if you haven't already, consider this your invitation to subscribe here on the Visibility Hacking channel. You get to hang out with me. You get to hang out with all of the Visibility Hacking team members. And you also get access to this awesome series we're putting together with John. And there is so much cool stuff coming down the pipe. Just saying, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button. All right, John, we have teased this throughout the entire video. Let's talk about different types of microphones. I like to make things simple. I was like, let's start with 3. And John's like, no, it's simply laid out. There's a few steps, few different hierarchies of audio needs. I love this. This needs to be a thing. Let's start out with the audio, the microphones that we all have out of the box. We get a new laptop, we buy a new computer, and we have our onboard microphones, the ones that are embedded, integrated into our devices. What do you say about those?
Meh. Well, the reality is this, right? when a manufacturer, an OEM, they have so many things they're trying to balance when they create a product, right? Whether it's a phone, a laptop, and we've all heard this like in automotive, right? They're going to save a few pennies here or save a few pennies there to go across 1 million units to save money. What's in those devices is acceptable, but it's not outstanding, right?
Yeah.
It's going to do a certain. Now, there's a little bit of a range. Some do better than others, but as a general rule, it's the lowest cost bidder. That's the microphone. It's the lowest
Yeah.
cost bidder from the supply base into that product. And so it's
Because
not
when they're making a new phone, for example, like Apple is thinking about all of the hardware inside. They're thinking about the screen, they're thinking about the cameras, they're thinking about the Bluetooth, they're thinking about all of these
it's
different
all
things. So
being
they're not
balanced.
focusing on the best audio quality because they're
Exactly.
trying to balance it all.
100%, Molly. That's exactly what the point is, right? So the integrated stuff can get you started, no doubt. And if that's all you have, it's not altogether, awful. It's just not. You just leave things off the table. It's not quite what it could be when you look at a device that will actually deliver an experience that is memorable, is getting closer to what the Hollywood guys are doing, right? It's just getting closer, right? So we really have sort of three kind of. There's actually a lot more, but there's kind of like three that we'll talk about here, which are covered most of the use cases. The first is USB mics, right? These are ubiquitous. The Yeti, you can go to Amazon right now. There's 45,000 4.5-star reviews on that specific microphone, right? They're just so popular. They're everywhere. And the reason why is because they deliver something really great. And you just plug it into your computer.
Yeah.
Right. And even something like that Yeti, for example, that's a great microphone because you can use it for a lot of different things. So you plug it in to a computer or whatever it's going to go into, and you can use it for your Zoom meeting. But say this weekend you want to run your podcast, there's little features on there where you can change that they call the pickup pattern. So instead of the one side of the microphone picking you up on this side, it actually converts to go to both sides. And so it sounds like you're both talking into the microphone. And so it has a lot of flexibility in the type of content that can be created with it. So this is why these things are so popular. Now, this little guy right here, this is a Razer Siren Mini. I love this mic because it sounds like a podcast and it's like $50. It's super cheap. You plug and play and it makes you sound like a podcaster. This mic right here is the Elgato. It's a little more. It's maybe $150. Great componentry, sounds good, but built in Elgato, you hear me talk about them all the time. I love the brand. Game-changing software. You can mix in things like not only your voice, but like say you have other things on your computer, you can mix it in. All on the side. You don't need to buy a $400 Rode Caster Pro or anything like that. You can just adjust it using software. So there's a huge range of what's available in this in terms of capabilities, but in general, excellent quality, not a lot of money, and very, very, very flexible. So that's USB.
USBs. Most of us have USBs on our computers, so it's a great no excuses place to start. Now, what about, we talked about use cases earlier. What about those of us who want our like Britney Spears moment? Maybe we're teaching more of a movement type piece of content, or maybe we're teaching and we're going to walk around a little bit more. I love wireless microphones. So tell us a bit
100%.
more about wireless options.
Yeah, these are fantastic, especially for anything that's active, or if you're outside and you're walking around, you don't have no power source. It's all built in. You have the battery, the flexibility, the mobility, and they also kind of offer some really cool things. So in this world of wireless mics, you have a receiver and you have a transmitter. The transmitter is on the person, and you can use different types of microphones. And so what Molly's doing right now, this is her transmitter, and you see that wire going up to a piece that's attached to her ear, right? So there's like a microphone, like Britney Spears style microphone, connected to that transmitter. But we can change that out. They have these things called lavalier mics where I can just pin it to my shirt, or I can do just different types of microphones that can connect to that transmitter that ultimately are picked up by the receiver, and the receiver can just be plugged into your device, your computer or a camera or whatever. So they're super flexible. Things you got to think about if you're using one for a very long time. The battery is a consideration. You might want to have more than one. You might want to make sure it's charged before you try to do things because it can get really frustrating because it's not plugged into a wall. But what it offers is just incredible flexibility, lots of opportunities for different use cases. Like say you're doing a spinning class, you can have something that's over here and it's kind of out of the way, or you're doing an interview, you just put it down here, you're not moving around much. There's just lots of ways to deploy a wireless solution. They're just great.
Oh, I love my wireless mics so much. Top of my head, I'm going to create a brand new video all about my favorite accessories for my wireless microphone, because use case, that's what I've been thinking about so much recently. And I've found so many cool accessories that help me expand the uses I can use my wireless microphones for. So definitely make sure you've hit that subscribe button so you can get access to that video. All right, now, those of you who have stayed to this point in the video, we're going to talk about the XLRs. And for those of you who are just getting started, maybe you heard John say that there's tens of thousands of options of USB microphones available online, and you're searching and you're realizing that there's this 3-letter phrase that keeps popping up at higher price point microphones, and you're wondering what it means and what the difference is. So, John, explain to the world what XLR means and why it's something that maybe, if you're willing to spend a little bit more money and you're willing to get a little bit more into the technical side, why it's something that people might want to pay attention to.
Yeah, so XLR is like if you're at the bar and you're looking at the top shelf of the booze, XLR is the top shelf of audio capture. It's the language of the professionals. They use it. It's got a 5-pin. It's got a 5-pin receiver jack. So every channel, everything is just set and ready to rock within that format, within that platform. It's what musicians use.
A 5-pin, that doesn't sound like something my computer has.
No, exactly right. That's exactly where we're going here. So if you want to play in this tier, then you really need to think about, okay, so I kind of think about it like buying a boat, right? You don't just buy a boat. You buy a trailer, you buy a truck to move it somewhere, you buy a marina. Like XLR is, you're invested. You're going to go and you're going to use this thing, and there's a lot of considerations. So if you want to get it into a computer to record, it's some type of interface to get it from microphone to interface to computer. It's not a just plug and play situation like USB, which is why is USB so popular? It's plug play, got a great sound. XLR, amazing sound potential. But you got to do a little more thinking about what it takes to actually get it to where you want it to go. And the types of microphones that are in this world, you can get up to tens of thousands of dollars for these things. And so, a condenser versus the different types of ways these things work. There's an entire body of work here. I don't want to go into all of them, but in terms of what you probably want to know from as a beginner is XLR is top shelf. There's more to it than just plug and play, and you do it right. That's what you're watching on YouTube. That's what you're watching. The very best pros. I mean, you've probably seen a mic that kind of looks like this one, a Shure MV7 or a Shure MV5 or a Shure SMB7 or a MV7, excuse me, SMB7 or an or an MV7. These things, SMB5. I can't do this right. There's so many. Point is, you see them all the time, and there's a reason why. And they're everywhere, but it's a little more thought, it's a little bit more money, and it's a little bit more effort to kind of get them deployed the way you may need them.
Oh, I love it. So, my friends, no excuses. We've given you the roadmap from your integrated microphones, which might not be the best, but if you're looking for an options, not excuses way to create great content, start with what you have. And when you're ready to start putting more money and putting more effort and spending more brain power learning about how to upgrade your perception, how to really get into that different sounding sound, and really level up your content in terms of how you're sounding, well, there's the roadmap. Either you're starting with something like the Yeti, which is a fantastic USB microphone, also comes in XLR version if you would like. If you want to move around, remember earlier in the video, we talk about use cases. Think about what your use case is. Do you want to move around a little bit more? Do you want to get baked into your studio and really put in some big bucks and get those professional sounding microphones? Wherever you are in your journey, John Dargy can help you sound and look your greatest. So, John, thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. My friends, if you want more John Dargy, well, then you're going to have to subscribe to the channel here because he's coming back for a series. You can also head over to John's channel and linked below, by the way. And you can always join us on Friday Night Lives because John comes and hangs out with the visibility hacking team constantly. And if you have questions about your audio, he is the best person to talk to. So, John, how can people get into your world?
Yeah, so right now, best place probably is the Facebook group, Web Meeting Pro. It's a great place. We're building it up. I'm constantly putting in like, hey, have you seen this technology? Or hey, have you seen this trend? Or hey, have you seen this? And demos and just a great place to interact with a community of people who are really interested in this topic. Probably the best place. But I also can subscribe to my YouTube channel, and other things are leveling up as we speak. But I say those are the two primary right now.
Oh, I love it. And my friends, linked below, you have to check out John's video about audio versus video. It'll contextualize a lot of what we talked about today. And it's a quick little link over to John's channel because his stuff is amazing. John, thank you so much for joining me. My friends, we'll see you in the next one.